3 months had passed since the pirate attack on Station Orion 7. The academy had been repaired. New walls replaced the broken ones. New windows looked out at the same stars. But nothing was truly the same. The students had changed. The way they walked through the halls. The way they trained. The way they treated each other. Everyone had seen what real danger looked like. Everyone had learned that strength meant nothing without the wisdom to use it. And everyone knew who had saved them. Hannah walked through the academy just like before. She went to class, took notes, and returned to her room every night. She wore the same gray clothes that were too big for her body. Her face was still calm. Her eyes were still quiet. But now, when she passed, students moved out of her way. Not in fear. In respect. They bowed their heads slightly, some putting their hands over their hearts. Some whispered thank you. Others just watched in silence. Hannah never responded to these gestures. She just kept walking, pretending everything was normal. But it was not normal. It could never be normal again. Instructor Jisoo watched from the training hall as Hannah practiced alone. The small human moved through combat forms that Jisoo had never seen before. Her movements were smooth like water and fast like lightning. Every punch cut through the air with perfect precision. Every kick could shatter stone. Jisoo had fought in the border wars. She remembered the stories about the human soldiers. How they fought with a fury that made even the strongest warriors shake. How they never surrendered. Never stopped. Never gave up until they or their enemies were dead. She had thought those stories were exaggerated. Now she knew they were not. Dohan, the head instructor, appeared beside her. His stone-like body made the floor shake slightly with each step. "Impressive," he said, watching Hannah. "I have seen many fighters in my life. She is among the best." Jisoo nodded. "She hides it well. If the attack had not happened, we might never have known. Perhaps that was her wish." Dohan crossed his massive arms. To be forgotten. To be ordinary. Can someone like her ever be ordinary? Dohan did not answer. He just watched as Hannah finished her practice and bowed to the empty room. A tradition from Earth, he supposed. Respecting the space where one trained. Later that day, a special ceremony was held in the main hall. Representatives from the Galactic Council had arrived. They wore formal robes and carried symbols of their high positions. They had come to honor the heroes of the attack. The hall was packed with students, teachers, and staff. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. The head representative was an ancient being named Suho. He had lived for over 1,000 years and had seen empires rise and fall. His body was thin and frail, but his eyes were sharp and wise. He called out names one by one. Students who had helped during the attack. Instructors who had protected the weak. Soldiers who had arrived to save them. Each person received a medal and a few words of praise. The crowd clapped for each one. Finally, Suho looked at his list. Then he looked out at the crowd. "There is one more name," he said. His voice was soft but carried to every corner of the hall. A name that was once erased from history. A name that was supposed to be forgotten. The crowd went silent. "This person asked me not to do this," Suho continued. "She said she wanted no honor, no recognition. She said she was just doing what needed to be done." He looked directly at Hannah, who stood in the back of the crowd, trying to hide behind taller students. "But some things cannot be hidden," Suho said. "And some debts must be paid." He gestured for Hannah to come forward. She did not move at first. Yuna gently pushed her from behind. Taeyeon nodded encouragingly. Slowly, reluctantly, Hannah walked through the crowd. Every eye followed her. Every breath was held. She stopped in front of Suho. He was much taller than her, but he bent down so their eyes were level. "The galaxy owes you a great debt," he said. "You saved this station. You saved these students. You have saved countless lives throughout your service. Hana looked at the floor. I also took many lives. Yes, that is the tragedy of war. Those who protect must also destroy. Those who save must also kill. Suho reached into his robe and pulled out a small box. This is the highest honor the Galactic Council can give. It has only been awarded 12 times in the history of our civilization. He opened the box. Inside was a simple metal star. It had no jewels, no decorations. Just plain metal shaped into a star with 5 points. The Star of Sacrifice, Suho said. Given to those who have given everything for others, who have lost themselves to save everyone else. He pinned the star to Hana's chest. It looked strange on her gray clothes. Too bright. Too important. Hana touched it gently. Her fingers trembled slightly. I do not deserve this, she whispered. Suho smiled. That is exactly why you do. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Students stamped their feet. Instructors clapped their hands. Even the stone-faced Doan allowed himself a small smile. Hana stood in the middle of it all, looking lost and uncomfortable. She was a soldier, not a hero. She was a killer, not a savior. She had done what she had been trained to do. Nothing more. But looking at the faces around her, she realized something. To them, it was more. To them, she was more. After the ceremony, Hana tried to escape to her room. But students kept stopping her. They wanted to shake her hand, thank her, ask her questions. She answered as briefly as possible, always trying to move forward. Finally, she reached her room. She opened the door and stepped inside, closing it behind her with a sigh of relief. Yuna was already there, sitting on her bed with a huge smile. You are famous now, Yuna said. The most famous person in the entire academy. Hana sat on her bed and removed the star from her chest. She looked at it for a long moment, then placed it carefully in her drawer. I do not want to be famous, she said. I want to be quiet. Too late for that. Yuna laughed. Everyone knows who you are. Everyone knows what you can do. Hana lay down on her bed and stared at the ceiling. Maybe I should leave. Find somewhere else. Somewhere nobody knows me. Yuna's smile faded. You would leave? After everything? Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she turned her head to look at her friend. No, she said finally. I do not think I would. Yuna's smile returned. Good, because you are stuck with me now. Roommates forever. Despite everything, Hana smiled. It was small, barely visible, but it was there. Forever is a long time, she said. I know. That is the point. The next morning, classes resumed. Hana went to training like always. But this time, something was different. Students gathered around her. Not to mock her. Not to challenge her. To learn. Will you teach us? They asked. Will you show us how to be strong like you? Hana looked at their eager faces. Young soldiers from across the galaxy. All wanting to learn. All wanting to grow. I am not a teacher, she said. Taeyeon stepped forward. You taught me something important. You taught me that true strength is knowing when not to fight. Jisoo appeared beside them. Perhaps you can assist with combat training. Nothing official, just helping when you can. Hana looked at the instructor who had once studied her with caution. Now, there was only respect in those 4 eyes. I will think about it, Hana said. She walked away, leaving them behind. But she did not say no. And for someone like Hana, that was almost a yes. That evening, she sat alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxy stretched before her, infinite and beautiful. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. The mountain in her photograph. She had left Earth to forget, to escape the memories of blood and death. to find peace in a place where nobody knew her name. Now everyone knew her name. Now she was famous again. A hero again. A legend again. But something was different this time. Before, she had been alone. A weapon without a purpose. A soldier without a war. Now she had friends. She had students. She had a place where she belonged. Yuna came to sit beside her. They did not speak. They just watched the stars together. Finally, Yuna broke the silence. "Are you happy here?" Hannah thought about the question for a long time. "I do not know if I can be happy," she said honestly. "I have seen too much, done too much. Happiness feels like something from another life." She paused. "But I am not unhappy. And for me, that is enough." Yuna nodded. She understood. She did not push for more. They sat together as the stars turned slowly around them. Two friends from different worlds. One who had seen too little. One who had seen too much. And somewhere in between, they found balance. The galaxy would always need heroes. It would always need warriors. It would always need people willing to fight and die for others. But it also needed something else. It needed teachers. It needed kindness. It needed people who knew that the greatest strength was not in the hand that could kill. It was in the heart that chose not to. Hannah looked at her hand. The same hand that had ended so many lives. The same hand that had saved so many more. Maybe she could use it for something different now. Maybe she could build instead of destroy. Teach instead of fight. Love instead of fear. That it would not be easy. Nothing ever was. But for the first time in a very long time, Hannah thought she might try. And in the end, that was enough. The attack lasted 3 more hours. Hannah led Taiyang and the other injured students to the safe zone. Then she left again. Nobody tried to stop her. Nobody could. Yuna waited in the safe zone with the other students. The sounds of fighting echoed through the walls. Explosions shook the floor. Screams filled the air. But somehow, slowly, the sounds became quieter. The explosions became less frequent. The screams stopped. When the all-clear signal finally sounded, Yuna was the first to leave the safe zone. She ran through the corridors, stepping over debris and broken walls. She had to find Hannah. She had to know if her friend was alive. She found her in the main docking bay. The bay was huge, big enough to hold 100 ships. Now it was filled with bodies. Pirates lay everywhere, scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. Some were still alive, groaning in pain. Most were not moving at all. In the middle of the bay stood Hannah. Her clothes were torn. There was blood on her hands and face. But none of it was hers. She stood perfectly still, looking at something in her palm. It was the photograph from her bag. The picture of the mountain on Earth. Yuna walked toward her slowly. "Hannah?" Hannah turned. Her eyes were different now. The emptiness was back, but there was something else behind it. Sadness. Deep, heavy sadness that had been hidden for a very long time. "Are you okay?" Yuna asked softly. Hannah looked at the bodies around her. "I tried to stop," she said. "I always try to stop." But they kept coming. They would not listen. Yuna did not know what to say. She just stood there, looking at the small human girl who had just defeated an army by herself. The rescue ships arrived an hour later. Soldiers from the Galactic Defense Force came rushing in, ready for battle. But the battle was already over. They found the pirate ships disabled and the pirate crews already defeated. The commander of the rescue team was a tall alien named Minho. He had gray skin and one mechanical eye that glowed blue. He had seen many battles in his long career. He had seen death and destruction on scales that most beings could not imagine. But when he saw the docking bay, he stopped walking. "Who did this?" He asked quietly. One of his soldiers pointed at Hannah. The small human girl was sitting on a broken crate, still holding her photograph. She looked tired, broken, like a doll that someone had thrown away. Minho walked toward her. He studied her face, her posture, her hands. Then his mechanical eye flashed as it scanned something. He froze. "Commander?" One of his soldiers asked. "What is wrong?" Minho did not answer. He just stared at the data that appeared in his vision. Classified files. Top secret records. Information that was supposed to be locked away forever. He took a step back. Then, slowly, he raised his hand to his chest in a salute. His soldiers looked at each other in confusion. Their commander had never saluted anyone before. He was one of the highest-ranking officers in the entire defense force. There was almost nobody above him. "Commander Minho of the Galactic Defense Force," he said formally. "I am honored to meet you." Hannah looked up at him. "Please do not. The records speak for themselves." Minho kept his salute. "Former commander of Earth Special Forces. Service number 7749. Survivor of the Titan Massacre. Hero of the Border Wars. Over 200 confirmed missions. 0 failures." The soldiers gasped. They had heard of these things. Everyone had heard of the Titan Massacre. It was one of the worst events in galactic history. A colony of 10 million people had been attacked by an unknown enemy. When the rescue forces arrived, they found only death. Only one survivor had been found. A young human soldier who had fought for 7 days and 7 nights without stopping. She had killed over 1,000 enemies with her bare hands. She had saved 300 civilians before the rescue ships arrived. That survivor was supposed to be dead. The records said she had died from her injuries soon after the rescue, but the records were wrong. Minho lowered his hand. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Why hide in a school? You could command entire armies. You could lead planets." Hannah stood up slowly. Her legs were shaking slightly. "I did not want to fight anymore," she said. "I came here to learn something different, to find something other than war, but the war found you." Hannah looked at the bodies around her. It always does. By the next morning, the whole station knew the truth. Someone had leaked the information. Someone always did. The story spread like fire, jumping from student to student, from teacher to teacher, from planet to planet. That the quiet human girl in room 47 was not weak. She was not average. She was a legend, a monster, a weapon in human form. Students who had laughed at her now walked away when she approached. Instructors who had ignored her now bowed their heads. The entire academy looked at her differently. Taehyun found her in the medical center, visiting the students who had been injured in the attack. Many of them were his friends, the same friends who had laughed when he beat her a month ago. He stood at the door, unable to enter. His body was covered in bandages. He had broken 3 ribs and fractured his arm. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. Lucky because of her. Hannah noticed him. She walked over to the door. Her face was calm, as always. Her eyes showed nothing. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Taehyun could not look at her. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "For what I did to you. For what I said." Hannah was quiet for a moment. "You did not know. That is not an excuse." Taehyun finally looked up. Tears were forming in his eyes. "I thought you were weak because you did not fight back. But you were not weak. You were holding back. You could have destroyed me. Yes. Why did you not?" Hannah tilted her head slightly. "Because you are a student. You were learning. You made mistakes. That is what students do. But I hurt you. I humiliated you. You hurt my body. Bodies heal." She paused. "I have been hurt much worse, by things much more dangerous than a young soldier with too much pride." Taeyeon did not know what to say. He stood there, looking at this small human girl who had seen more pain and death than he could ever imagine, who had been called a monster and a hero, who had chosen to hide in a school because she wanted peace. "I want to start over," he said finally. "I want to learn from you. Not fighting, not combat, just how to be better, how to be strong without being cruel." Hannah studied his face for a long moment. Then, for the first time since she arrived at the academy, she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. "That is a good thing to want," she said. She reached out her hand. Taeyeon looked at it. The same hand that had broken bones and stopped weapons. The same hand that had saved his life. He took it, and in that moment, something changed. The girl who had been feared became something else. Something more done. She became a teacher. That night, Yuna waited in their room. When Hannah came back, she was carrying 2 cups of hot tea. She gave one to Yuna and sat on her bed. "You never told me," Yuna said, "about any of it. You never asked." "I asked many times." Hannah sipped her tea. "You asked about my past. I did not want to talk about my past. It is full of dead things." Yuna looked at her friend. The monster. The legend. The quiet girl who read books and never fought back. "What do you want now?" Yuna asked. "Now that everyone knows?" Hannah looked out the window at the stars. They were beautiful. Cold and distant, but beautiful. "The same thing I wanted before," she said. "Peace, quiet, maybe a friend." Yuna smiled. "You have a friend." Hannah nodded. "Yes, I think I do." They sat in silence, drinking their tea, watching the stars. 2 girls from different worlds, connected by something stronger than species or planets or history. Outside, the galaxy continued to turn. Wars were fought. Empires rose and fell. Legends were born and died. But in room 47, there was only peace, at least for now. 1 month had passed since Hannah arrived at the academy. She continued her routine without change. She went to class, took notes, trained with the others, and returned to her room every night. The bruises from her fight with Taeyeon had healed, but the rumors about her weakness had not disappeared. Most students ignored her now. She was not interesting enough to bully and not strong enough to respect. She was just there, existing in the background like a shadow that nobody noticed. Yuna was her only friend. The blue-skinned girl from Myra had stopped asking questions about Hannah's past. She had learned that Hannah would not answer. But Yuna stayed by her side anyway. Something about the quiet human girl made Yuna want to protect her. It was normal. Tuesday night, when everything changed, Hannah was in the library, reading a book about military history. The library was almost empty. Most students preferred to spend their free time in the training halls or the entertainment centers. Books were considered old and boring. Yuna sat across from her, studying for an exam. "You read too much," she said with a smile. "Your eyes will fall out." Hannah did not look up from her book. "That is not possible." Yuna laughed softly. It was a joke. Before Hannah could respond, the lights in the library flickered. Once, twice. Then they went out completely. The emergency lights came on, casting everything in a red glow. A loud alarm started ringing through the station. The sound was sharp and urgent, like a scream that would not stop. Yuna jumped to her feet. "What is happening?" An announcement came through the speakers. The voice was calm but serious. "Attention all students and staff. The station is under attack. This is not a drill. Report to your designated safe zones immediately. I repeat, this is not a drill." Hannah closed her book slowly. She stood up and looked toward the windows. Outside, in the darkness of space, she could see lights flashing. Ships were approaching the station. Many ships. Pirates, Una whispered. Her face had turned pale. They said the station was safe. They said nothing could attack us here. The sounds of explosions echoed through the walls. The floor shook. Students started running past the library, screaming and pushing each other in panic. Hannah walked toward the door. Her steps were calm and steady, unlike everyone else who was running in fear. Where are you going? Una grabbed her arm. We need to get to the safe zone. Hannah looked at her roommate. You go. I will catch up. No, I'm not leaving you. Another explosion shook the station. This one was closer. The lights flickered again, and part of the ceiling fell down. Dust filled the air. Through the smoke, they heard screaming. Not screams of fear, but screams of pain. Someone was hurt. Hannah turned toward the sound. Without saying a word, she started walking in that direction. Hannah! Una shouted. What are you doing? That is where the danger is. But Hannah did not stop. She moved through the hallways like water flowing through a river. She stepped over debris and walked past broken walls. The screaming grew louder. While Una followed her. She did not know why. Maybe she could not let her friend face danger alone. Maybe she was just too scared to be by herself. They reached the main corridor of Building B. What they saw there made Una freeze in horror. Pirates had already breached the station. There were at least 30 of them, all carrying weapons and wearing armor. They were tall creatures with dark purple skin and 4 eyes each. Their species was known throughout the galaxy as ruthless killers who attacked stations and ships for money and resources. In front of the pirates were students. Not just any students. It was Tyan and his group of friends. They had tried to fight back. Now they were on the ground, injured and surrounded. The leader of the pirates laughed. His voice was deep and cruel. Young soldiers, he said. So brave. So stupid. You should have run like the others. He raised his weapon, pointing it at Tyan's head. I will enjoy this. Tyan closed his eyes. His body was broken. He could not move. He had never felt so helpless in his entire life. This is how I die, he thought. Killed by pirates. How shameful. Then he heard footsteps. Soft, quiet footsteps that somehow cut through all the chaos and noise. He opened his eyes. Hannah was walking toward the pirates. Her hands were at her sides. Her face was calm. She looked at the 30 armed killers like they were nothing more than insects. The pirate leader noticed her. He turned his weapon toward her. Another brave student? Do you want to die too? Hannah stopped about 20 feet away from him. She stood completely still. Let them go, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the corridor. Leave this station, and I will let you live. For a moment, there was silence. Then the pirates burst into laughter. All 30 of them laughed so hard that their weapons shook in their hands. Did you hear that? The leader shouted, This little human will let us live. She threatens us. He walked toward Hannah, still laughing. Do you know who I am, little girl? I am Duri. I have killed thousands. I have destroyed entire cities. And you think you can threaten me? He stopped right in front of her and looked down at her small body. What are you going to do? Cry? Beg for mercy? Hannah looked up at him. And for the first time since she arrived at the academy, her eyes changed. The emptiness was gone. The calm was gone. In their place was something ancient and terrible. Something that had seen death 1,000 times and had never looked away. No, she said. I am going to give you one more chance. Leave now. Duri stopped laughing. Something in her eyes made his heart beat faster. But he pushed the feeling away. She was just a small human girl. What could she possibly do? He raised his weapon. Goodbye, little girl. Yuna screamed. Taeyang closed his eyes again. The other students turned away, unable to watch. The sound of a weapon firing echoed through the corridor, but it was not followed by the sound of a body falling. Yuna looked up. Her eyes went wide. Hannah had moved. In the time it took Duri to pull the trigger, she had moved. She was no longer standing in front of him. She was behind him, holding his arm. The weapon had fired at the ceiling. Duri tried to turn, tried to understand what had happened. But before he could move, there was a sound of bones breaking. His arm bent the wrong way. His scream filled the corridor. Hana let go of his arm and looked at the other pirates. "I gave you a chance," she said softly. "You did not take it." Then she moved. What happened next was not a fight. Fights had two sides that could hurt each other. This was something else entirely. This was a storm meeting leaves. This was an ocean crushing sand. This was death wearing the face of a small human girl. Yuna watched, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to understand what she was seeing. Hana moved through the pirates like they were standing still. Every punch she threw broke something. Every kick sent someone flying. Every movement was perfect, smooth, and absolutely deadly. The pirates fired their weapons. They missed. She was never where they aimed. She was always somewhere else, behind them, beside them, above them. In 2 minutes, it was over. 30 pirates lay on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were dead. None were standing. Hana stood in the middle of them. Her breathing was steady. There was no blood on her clothes, even though the floor around her was covered in it. She turned to look at the students. Taeyang stared at her with his mouth open. His friends could not speak. Yuna felt tears running down her face, though she did not know why. Hana walked toward them. The students moved back in fear. Even Taeyang, who had beaten her so easily a month ago, crawled away from her. But Hana just reached out her hand. "Can you walk?" she asked Taeyang quietly. "More are coming. We need to move." Taeyang looked at her hand. Then he looked at her face. It was the same face as before. Calm, quiet, empty. But he knew now. He finally understood. The emptiness was not weakness. It was control. It was a wall that held back something so powerful that it could destroy everything if set free. And he had seen just a glimpse of what waited behind that wall. With a shaking hand, he took her hand and let her help him up. "Who are you?" he whispered. Hana did not answer. She just started walking toward the safe zone, helping the injured students move with her. Behind them, the bodies of 30 pirates lay still in the red emergency light. 2 weeks passed at the Galactic Military Academy. Hana went to every class. She listened to every lecture. She took notes in a small book, while other students used advanced technology. She never spoke unless someone asked her a question directly. And even then, her answers were short and quiet. The other students began to notice her. Not because she was impressive, but because she was so ordinary. In a school full of warriors and fighters, Hana stood out by being completely average. She ran slower than everyone else. She lifted less weight than everyone else. In written tests, she scored in the middle of the class. "She's nothing special," the students said to each other. Why did they let her in? Yuna tried to defend her roommate. "She works hard," Yuna told the others. "She never gives up." But nobody cared about hard work. They cared about results. And Hana's results were not impressive at all. One morning, the combat training class gathered in the fighting arena. It was a large circular space with sand on the floor and high walls around it. Students would fight each other here to practice their skills. The instructors watched from above and gave scores based on technique, speed, and power. Instructor Jisoo stood in the center of the arena. "Today," she announced, "we will have practice matches. Each student will fight one opponent. The goal is not to kill, but to show your abilities. Begin when I call your names. The first few matches were exciting. Students from different planets used different fighting styles. Some used pure strength. Others used speed and flexibility. A few used special abilities that their species had developed over millions of years. Yuna fought against a student covered in fur. She used her water-based techniques to move quickly and strike from unexpected angles. She won easily. The crowd cheered for her. Then Jisoo called out, "Hana and Taeyun." The arena went silent. Taeyun was one of the most popular students in the academy. He came from a noble family on his home planet. His species was known for their incredible strength and thick skin that could stop most weapons. He was tall, handsome in his own alien way, and very proud of himself. He walked into the arena with a smile on his face. His friends laughed and made jokes. "This will be over in 2 seconds, one of them said. "Maybe 1 second. Another added. Hana walked into the arena slowly. She looked even smaller standing next to Taeyun. The top of her head only reached his chest. Her arms looked like thin sticks compared to his massive muscles. Taeyun looked down at her. "Human girl," he said loudly so everyone could hear. "I will try not to hurt you too much. It would be sad to send you home on your first real fight." His friends laughed again. Hana said nothing. She stood with her hands at her sides, relaxed and calm. Her face showed no fear, but also no confidence. She just looked empty. Jisoo raised her hand. "Begin." Taeyun moved first. He was fast for his size, rushing toward Hana with his fist raised. The punch was powerful enough to break stone. Hana stepped to the side. The punch missed her by inches. Taeyun turned and attacked again. This time he used both hands, swinging left and right. Hana moved back, avoiding each strike by the smallest distance possible. She did not attack. She did not try to fight back. She only avoided. The crowd watched with confusion. What was she doing? "Fight back!" Taeyun shouted. He was getting angry now. He attacked faster and harder, but Hana kept moving away from each strike. "Stop running. Are all humans this weak?" He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at her eyes. It was a dirty trick against the rules of the training match. But nobody stopped him. Hana closed her eyes for a moment. The sand hit her face. When she opened her eyes again, they were red and watering. Taeyun used that moment to charge forward. He grabbed her by the shirt and lifted her off the ground. His hand was so big that it wrapped around her entire upper body. "See?" he shouted to the crowd. "This is what humans are. Weak, pathetic. They do not belong here." He threw her across the arena. Hana flew through the air and landed hard on the sand. She rolled twice before stopping. The crowd was silent. Some students looked uncomfortable. Others smiled at the show. Jisoo watched from above. Her face showed nothing. Hana lay on the ground for a moment. Then, slowly, she got up. Sand covered her clothes and her hair. Her lip was bleeding from the fall. But she stood straight and looked at Taeyun. "Again," she said quietly. Taeyun laughed. "You want more? Fine." He walked toward her and kicked her in the stomach. Hana fell back down. He kicked her again. And again. "Stop," Yuna shouted from the crowd. "This is too much." But Taeyun did not stop. He picked Hana up again and threw her against the wall of the arena. The impact was loud. Hana slid down the wall and sat on the ground, breathing heavily. "Surrender," Taeyun said. "Say that humans are weak. Admit that you do not belong here, and I will stop." Hana looked up at him. Blood ran down the side of her face. Her body was shaking, but her eyes were still calm, still empty. "No," she said. Taeyun's smile disappeared. Something about that word bothered him. It was so simple, so quiet, but it carried a weight that he could not understand. He raised his fist to strike her again. "Enough," Jisoo said loudly. "The match is over. Taeyeon wins." Taeyeon lowered his fist slowly. He looked at Hana one more time, then walked out of the arena. His friends cheered and congratulated him. But Taeyeon did not smile. He kept looking back at the small human girl who had refused to surrender. Yuna ran into the arena and helped Hana stand up. "Are you okay?" she asked with worry in her voice. "We need to take you to the medical center." Hana shook her head. "I am fine." "You are not fine. He almost killed you." Hana started walking toward the exit. Her steps were slow and painful, but steady. "It does not matter," she said. "Why you had followed her? Why did you not fight back? I saw you avoid his attacks at the beginning. You could have done something." Hana stopped. She turned to look at Yuna. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Something dark and deep, like a fire that had buried under ash for a very long time. "If I fight back," Hana said slowly, "I might not be able to stop." Then she turned and continued walking, leaving Yuna standing alone with those strange words echoing in her mind. That night, the whole academy talked about the fight. Everyone agreed on the same thing. Humans were weak. Hana was proof of that. She could not fight. She could not defend herself. She would probably leave the academy soon. Taeyeon became even more popular after the match. He told everyone how easy it had been to defeat the human girl. How she had not even tried to fight back. How she had just stood there like a scared animal. But deep inside, Taeyeon could not forget that final look in Hana's eyes. That moment when she said no and showed no fear at all. It was strange. It was wrong. It was like looking into the eyes of a predator pretending to be prey. Taeyeon shook his head and pushed the thought away. He was being foolish. She was just a weak human girl. Nothing more. He could not have been more wrong. The shuttle landed with a soft hum on the metal platform of Station Orion 7. Hana stepped out slowly, carrying only a small bag over her shoulder. She looked around at the massive space station that would be her home for the next 3 years. The Galactic Military Academy was the most famous school in the known universe. Students came from hundreds of planets to learn here. And now, a human girl from Earth had joined them. Hana was small. She stood only 5 feet tall with thin arms and legs. Her black hair was cut short, just below her ears. Her face was calm and showed no emotion. She wore simple gray clothes that were too big for her body. She looked like someone who wanted to disappear into the background. Around her, alien students walked in groups. Some had blue skin and 4 arms. Others had scales and tails. A few floated in the air because they had no legs at all. They were all big, strong, and loud. They laughed and talked about their home planets, their families, and their future careers as soldiers. Nobody noticed Hana at first. She walked quietly toward the main building, following the signs that pointed to the registration office. Her footsteps made no sound on the metal floor. Inside the office, a tall creature with green skin and 6 eyes looked down at her. His name tag said, Instructor Bora. He held a datapad in his large hand and scrolled through her file. "Human," he said slowly. "From Earth, 3rd planet in the Sol system." Hana nodded. "Yes, sir." Bora made a strange sound. It might have been a laugh. "We do not get many humans here. Your species is fragile." Hana said nothing. She kept her eyes on the floor. "You are assigned to room 47 in Building C," Bora continued. "Your roommate is already there. Classes start tomorrow morning. Do not be late." Hana took the key card from his hand. "Thank you, sir." She walked out of the office and followed the map on her small device. Building C was on the other side of the station. It took her 20 minutes to get there. Along the way, she passed training grounds where students practiced combat. She saw them fighting with weapons and their bare hands. They moved fast and hit hard. The ground shook when some of them fell. Hana watched for a moment, then continued walking. Room 47 was at the end of a long hallway. Hana pressed her key card against the door, and it slid open with a soft sound. Inside, the room was small but clean. There were 2 beds, 2 desks, and 1 window that showed the stars outside. On one of the beds sat a tall alien girl. Her skin was light blue, and she had gills on the sides of her neck. Her eyes were large and dark, like the deep ocean. She looked up when Hana entered. "Oh," she said, "you must be my new roommate." Hana nodded. "I am Hana." The alien girl smiled. Her teeth were small and sharp. "I am Yuna. I come from the water planet Myra. You are human, right?" "Yes." Yuna stood up. She was almost 2 feet taller than Hana. She looked down at the small human girl with a mix of curiosity and pity. "I heard humans are not very strong," Yuna said carefully. "This academy is very hard. Are you sure you want to be here?" Hana put her bag on the empty bed. "I am sure." Yuna watched her unpack. There was not much inside the bag. A few clothes, a small book, and a photograph of a mountain on Earth. Nothing else. "Where are your weapons?" Yuna asked. "Your training equipment?" "I do not have any," Hana said. Yuna's large eyes grew even larger. "But how will you fight? How will you pass the combat tests?" Hana looked at her for a moment. Her face was still calm, showing nothing. "I will find a way." That night, Yuna could not sleep. She kept looking at the small human girl on the other bed. Hana slept quietly, without moving at all. Her breathing was so soft that Yuna could not hear it. For a moment, Yuna thought she might be dead. But then Hana turned slightly, and Yuna relaxed. Strange, Yuna thought. Very strange. The next morning, classes began. Hana and Yuna walked together to the main training hall. Hundreds of students were already there, standing in rows. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Some were covered in fur. Others had metal parts attached to their bodies. A few had wings folded against their backs. At the front of the hall stood the instructors. They were all veterans of great wars. Their bodies showed scars from battles that had happened long before most students were born. The head instructor was a massive creature named Dohan. He had gray skin as hard as stone and arms as thick as tree trunks. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the entire hall. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Dohan said. "You are here because you want to become soldiers. You want to protect your planets, your families, and the peace of the galaxy. But I will tell you something now. Most of you will fail." The students were silent. Nobody moved. "This academy does not accept weakness," Dohan continued. "If you cannot fight, you will leave. If you cannot survive, you will leave. Only the strongest will graduate." Hana stood in the back row. She was the smallest person in the entire hall. The students next to her looked down at her with confusion. Why was a human here? What could she possibly do? A tall student with red scales leaned toward his friend. "Look at that," he whispered. "A human. She will not last 1 week." His friend laughed quietly. "Maybe not even 1 day." Hana heard them. She did not react. She kept her eyes forward and her hands at her sides. After the opening speech, the students were divided into groups. Hana was placed in Group 12 with 9 other students. Yuna was also in the same group. The others were all aliens from different planets. They were all bigger and stronger than Hana. Their group instructor was a female warrior named Jisoo. She had 4 arms and could move faster than the eye could see. She looked at each student in the group, studying them carefully. When her eyes reached Hana, she stopped. "Human?" Jisoo said. I have fought against your kind before. In the border wars. The other students turned to look at Hana. This was interesting news. You survived? One student asked Jisoo. Jisoo did not answer the question. She just kept looking at Hana with a strange expression. It was not pity. It was not anger. It was something else. Something like caution. We will begin basic training tomorrow, Jisoo said finally. Rest today. You will need it. As the students left the hall, Yuna walked beside Hana. What did she mean? Yuna asked. About the border wars? Hana looked up at the stars through the window. I do not know, she said softly, but somewhere deep in her eyes there was something Yuna could not understand. A shadow, a memory, a secret that Hana kept locked away, and Yuna suddenly felt very cold,